Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you might be tuning in from. I'm Stefan Rapazzo, your host on Best Perspective. Thanks for joining us with Noah Brinkworth alongside. We have a special episode pre-WUC Worlds coming up in Gold Coast. Our guest will be Matt Ryan, the tournament director of the big show. And as per usual, before we get into our interview, Noah and I are going to chew the fat upon what is happening in the wide world of Ultimate, and there's lots happening. Noah, how are you? First things first.
I'm doing great, Steph. Like a lot of people in Ultimate, I'm really excited for Worlds. I'm not just excited to watch some great frisbee at home, but both myself and you, Steph, will be flying out there in the flesh, watching some of the best Ultimate on show. Myself behind the camera, Steph in front of the microphone. So, yeah, I fly out in 2 days, and it is going to be one of the best weeks of Ultimate of all time. It's been 8 years since the last World Championships. It's been far too long. And, you know, it's exciting all the way up and down. We've got some new teams countries that we've never seen play World Championships. We've got some countries that are culminations of decade-long programs to try and win the World Championships. Steph, what are you most excited to see?
Yeah, I mean, everything. To be there, to be back there for me, it's a homecoming of sorts as well. But it is the event that I'm mostly excited. As you said, the crown jewel of the sport. I mean, World Games is something different, but our independent World Championship run by the Federation is something that we've dearly missed. You said some of the, you anticipate it to be the best. I remember being in the stands in 2008 in Vancouver and Facebook posting, I think I just witnessed the best game of Ultimate that had ever been played, that has ever been played. And, there was a little bit of question mark. Maybe, yeah, I guess. I mean, each new year, the sport keeps evolving. And for sure, that continues to be the case. That time, it was Canada beating U.S. on home soil. This year, I'm talking in the open division. That's the game I was referring to. But so many, tasty matchups. I don't know which division I like the best. I think the mixed, but I swap back and forth so much. The women's division looks amazing. I can't throw shade at the open division. It is going to be absolutely incredible. I have been really sinking my teeth in as much as possible into, the teams going, the venue, the everything, the organization, even helping organize the party over there. But I am, both feet into this one, and I can't wait. So, as we can't wait, we're going to go in. We're going to talk you through all the pools back at home. Open up your browser if you want to move along with us. Go through the pools, talk briefly about how the divisional work, and maybe pick our favorite to win the pools without going into great detail. After, we're going to get to our interview at the end of the show, or more likely in the patron only section. We will break this down a little further. How's that sound, Noah?
Sounds great, Steph. Let's start off with the open division. Shall I run down the pools here for us?
Yeah, talk us through Pool A here. Who do we got in Pool A?
We got the US coming in as number 1 seed, unsurprisingly, and we have GB, Austria, and Hong Kong.
GB, Austria, Hong Kong. Of course, the open division, 4 pools, 16 teams, nice and easy to run a tournament format. It breaks down nice and simple. Going into quarters, I think if you win your top 2 in the power pools, will go directly to quarters, and behind will have to play their way up or down to keep or steal those spots back in. So, it's semi-forgiving. Top 2 certainly puts you in a good position. GB have won or have been to the finals in 2012. Is it tough for them to be in a group with US, you think?
I think that, yes, they're in a group with the US, right? But then on the flip side, the third place team, Austria, is not that scary, right? It's a team that they know a lot about. They've come up against in the European season. They've played Austria and Austrian players. So, look, I think they're going to be fine with it. And deeper games for GB are going to matter more once we get into the power pools.
Yeah, it might be good to get Clapham have played US at Windmill. It might be good to just get that out of the way early, get a taste of one of the toughest teams you could possibly face in the tournament, and hopefully use that to get stronger and stronger and hope to get a chance to face them again. As they say, some of the time, the best time to knock off the Giants is at the start of the tournament too. If the scheduling goes their way, they might get a piece of them early, and that could be. It looks like it's the last game of the bracket though, so it's probably their third game for each of them.
The flip side, Steph, was we know how well the US scout, and if we have a US GB matchup deep into the bracket, the US are going to have a lot of information on GB. They're not going to be this unknown. They're not going to worry really stylistically about how they're going to play. So maybe they have to go and beat them early and give them a scare.
Yeah, I think, as with everything always getting better, I think there's going to be more coaches. I wonder if there's going to be any coachless teams. I would have to think no, and this could be the first Worlds with zero coachless teams if that becomes the way. And the U.S. are very good at scouting. The rest of the world is getting good at following what the U.S. is doing. So I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to have their eye on a lot of film, that are going to have some coaches on sidelines taking notes, a lot of clipboards. Let's move to Pool B, though, because we got to move right along here. This one is an interesting one. Japan, Belgium, France, China, People's Republic of China Open. How do you see this one going?
Look, one day China will show up and they'll be good, but here they've bringing less than 20 players. I don't think that's a way to... That's not the kind of thing you want to do if you're going to challenge for the top spots of this tournament. So it's going to be between the top three here, France, Belgium, and Japan. I think that against the seeding, you might slightly favour Belgium here coming in as the European Championships. There's a narrative around Japan that they've got old and they haven't replaced with new, fresh talent good enough. But France are like a sneaky good team as well. People like Bonnet, Kais Mate, people like there's still plenty of talent in France. We've seen that at juniors, at World Juniors, at European Juniors, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, maybe at the back end of the show. But France have a really good shot. If Japan show up weak, then maybe we could have two European teams topping this pool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really back the Europeans throughout this tournament. I think they're going to have the strongest European showing there's ever been at a World Championship. I do look at the Japanese roster and recognize too many players from 08 and 06 and 2012. That is dangerous. Yes, they've got some young blood in there, but you're right. They are, Matsuno, Kurono, right out the gates. A couple old heads. Maybe not bad to have a couple of old heads. Can they get the balance? Japan, anytime I ever leave them for dead or assume that maybe not, we haven't seen enough, they're always sneaky. They don't have that much. Sneaky in the sense that they don't have much film that's really available about them. You can't see their lead-ins. You don't know too much about their cores and who plays together. I do think Belgium's going to win it. I think France is going to give Japan a heck of a game, and I think that game for second in the pool is going to be a cracker.
I think with that game, right, if it's really, really windy, like we know Runaway Bay can be, and Matt Ryan's going to test that later in the pod, Japan have a great shot. They're going to have better throwing talent across the roster, but the top level athletes are going to be on the French team. So
yeah, but again, you're right. The Japanese will be better throwers, but again in the wind, like I go back to a Masters game in Japan in Osaka on one of the windiest days, and Sweden Sorong. They had one Sebastian Sporong, I think his name's close, big man, and they just kept bombing it to him. Teller was bombing it to him against the Japanese, and they'd have two or three running around him, hang up in the wind, and the tall ball was working well in the wind. So wind can be a thrower's game, wind can be a receiver's game. It really depends how that wind's a blowing.
So they need a crosswind is what they need.
Yes.
Great. Let's move.
Boom. Pool C.
I'll go through this one. We got Australia Open, Germany, New Zealand, and Singapore.
Okay, so we get this is whole Southern Hemisphere and the Germans. You get the Anzac Treaty, Australia, New Zealand. I see this going to chalk. the Germany Australia game, the Germany New Zealand game. I don't want to count Singapore out. I'm not sure if Singapore put their stock into mix as they have been doing. I have a feeling that they may have, but I don't know if they put their best players into mixed or if they put their best players into open. I think they are going to have to be playing themselves out of the bottom here, and they'll have their hands full. They could take any of these teams, but I don't see it happening. The way Australia played in U.S. Open, without much modification, without some of their best players, I think they're going to be stronger than Germany. I see Germany and France as quite similar, as they're going to represent, they're going to fight. They're very deep, but they don't have superstar power that's going to get them over the line. Like, yeah, Konrad Schlor's there for Germany. He's a great player. There's a lot of Jonathan Meyer-Bottling, great player. Do they have the superstar power? No. Do they have depth and discipline? Yes. I think the Aussies got a few more superstars. Kiwis, same. I know a bit less about. I know Whitlock and Haberfield are going to be two of their top guns there, but the depth, I'm uncertain of the Kiwis. So I would pick this one to chalk.
Yeah, I can definitely see the argument for chalk. I'm gonna back the Kiwis. Like, I think that Nicholas Whitlock is a player who is extremely talented, but hasn't been able to display his talent on the global stage like Haberfield has, like a lot of the Europeans, McHale's, that sort of thing. But he's sort
You
of like
see,
now, super tall, great thrower, great receiver. Like, this could be like, oh, Nicholas Whitlock is one of the best players in the world, right? Haberfield has also been really, really awesome. And I was worried about this New Zealand team because I know that the New Zealand mixed team won the AOUGC, so I was maybe like, okay, maybe all the best matching players in that team. But seeing those two names shows me this team's pretty serious, Steph. So I'm going to take the Aussies to top, New Zealand get second in this group.
Nice. I still remember the Aussie National Open final. Whitlock was playing with Sunder, and they lost to Ellipsis. But commentators Andrew Moroney and Simon Talbot were calling him Kiwi Gak. I think it started in the chats, and then they kept it going. But I liked Kiwi Gak about Whitlock.
Is there an Aussie you would take before Whitlock?
Yeah, Andrews. I would take Rob Andrews ahead of Whitlock for sure.
I think Whitlock gives you a wider range, right?
Whitlock's younger and he's got a bigger ceiling. But right now, I think I want the guy who's a bit more battle hardened, and I think you get that with Andrews.
Understandable. Well, let's move on to Pool D. We have got Canada Open, Colombia Open, Italy Open, Chinese Taipei Open.
And I'm sorry, Chinese Taipei, but this Pool D is Pool of Doom as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how you... maybe not. I see Italy Open, and I always assume the Italy Open we know and love in European Ultimate, but that is not this Italy Open. Chinese Taipei, the only team, or one of only two teams with a team in every division, counting guts. So they are well represented in the disc sports for this World Championship. Chinese Taipei, again, the Asian representation at Worlds here. I am digging into it. I'm trying to find some names. I'm trying to find some footage. I've got very limited, but I've had a few watches. Some doubt that they're going to be able to beat anyone except maybe Italy. But I still think the Italians, even though this is the rest kind of situation, their top male players who are going to Worlds are on the mixed team. You know the way the Italians are drilled. The Italians are a very disciplined kind of ultimate nation. Now, Colombia and Canada at the top, I mean, for me, that Canada's going to be better than them. But Colombia has definitely put their top guns in the open division, not mixed, where we've kind of seen them. I've always said the women have carried the men in mixed play at World Games. Now, this is the time for the men to prove themselves. This is the first World Championship in 8 years. They've kind of been, touted as these riding the tail feathers of the ladies to some high seedings in mixed. They are good. I don't think they'll beat Canada.
I don't think that they'll beat Canada as well. I think Canada have had a real, roller coaster of a season in which I mean that they are just riding the lift hill of the roller coaster. They started real low, and every tournament you see them at, you're like, oh, these guys are really good. These guys are really good. So much better at Windmill than they were at London Invite. Got to a whole new level at US Open as well. So I don't have worries about Canada at the top of this pool. Colombia, by my count, 5 World Games players from the last cycle on this Colombia Open team. That means that the best Colombian players in the country are on this team, and I can't say the same about Italy, to be honest. So I'm going to take chalk in this pool, Colombia over Italy in this one. But Italy are going to put up a great fight, as they always do. They have so much depth, right? The bottom players on that team are going to be really, really excellent.
So that is the Open division. As mentioned, those will go to power pools. Top 2 from each division will go to pool E and F. If you get through top 2 of those divisions, you'll go direct to quarters. And then the bottom 2 will play the top 2 of what were initially the lower power pools. We will go on with how we think that might sort itself out a bit later. For now, into the women's division. Pool A, Noah, who do we got? So, women's division, we have 12 teams. Is that right? 2, 4. I'm pretty sure I know this. Yes. 12 teams, 2 pools of 6. Go on, first one.
Steph, let's do a closer for Open, go to Matt, and then come back to women's. You have
okay.
I'll edit it, because we're going to go so long here.
Yeah. And that's the Open division. We can't really do things briefly when we get talking about Ultimate. That takes just a bit longer. So we are going to go to the interview and bring Matt Ryan in. Noah and I will be back to conclude the pool section of Worlds at the end of this show, or after the interview, and a little bit more. And then we'll also have, as always, patron only. And what the hell's the matter with me? Hang on, I get a stupid text. I got to do that again.
So I've just said the stuff about Pool D, right? So I'm not going to leave in any of the stuff about power pools and crosses. So if you want to do that bit again, do that bit.
So do what? The Pool D?
So I talked all the way up to the Pool D, and you were like, okay, that's the Open division. Reminder, it's going to be like power pools, crosses, stuff. Let's go to the women's division. Just say like, all right, that wrapped up.
Okay, yeah, I gotcha.
And then talk about format, and then be like, but we can't do that right now. Let's go to the interview.
And that's Pool D, and that is the entirety of what we're going to talk about now in the Open division. The format goes where the top 2 from each pool will go to power pools. They get to play it out. If you top 2 your power pools, you go straight to quarters. Beyond that, beneath that, let's say, you'll have to play your way back into those other 4 power pool spots from the top of the bottom power pools and the bottom of the top power pools. A lot to take in, but it is quite a simple draw. And that is where we're going to leave you for now. We are going to move to the women's division, but we're going to do that after we bring in Matt for his interview. At the conclusion of the interview, Noah and I will talk women's, talk mixed. Then beyond that, we will delve further. Some of it might be patron only. Some of it might be included, but we've got so much to talk about. But for now, Matt Ryan. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. I'm Stefan Rapazzo. Thanks for joining us once again on Best Perspective, a special Worlds edition. I've got the man at the helm, tournament director, Matt Ryan, on the show today. Matt, how you doing today?
G'day, Steph. Very good. Nice to see you. Been a long time, mate.
It has been. It's, I guess, 8 years since I was there, almost 9 years since I was there, and we got to run alongside here and there, and when the cleats were still on. As mentioned, tournament director. This has been a big job for you. I know it's gone back a long way, and we will get into kind of the breadth of the job you've been doing and the the duration of the job, the enormity of it. I know all this is definitely validated, but you were one time an Ultimate player. You didn't just start as an administrator. And as the nature of our show, we try and get to know our guests. So we will go way back when, and not to throw shade at your age. I'm an old fella too, but like way back when. Let's talk about, being a Queenslander. I think you're from Brisbane. You can confirm that for me. But where were you when you found Ultimate? How did it come into your life?
Yeah. I was at uni at UQ in St Lucia in Brizzy, and actually this guy used to turn up to my lectures, and he always had these funky T-shirts with these weird messages, but there was a consistent theme, and they always had Ultimate or some Ultimate team, and I thought that's really strange. Steph, is this censored? Can I swear in this? Or
yeah, you can swear. You can definitely swear.
Because I'm used to it. Anyway, I used to see this guy, and he had these cool shirts, and I always thought, well, this is weird. What's this all about, this Ultimate thing? And then coincidentally, I went out with a girl who was an Ultimate player, and she introduced me to this weird sport, and that was it. I was hooked, and it turned out I met that guy, and we became very good friends. And I ended up.
Who is that guy?
His name was Todd Blucher, and he was an American guy who was I think he was a Condors player way back then, but he came to UQ to study marine biology, as lots of people did, and we became mates. So
yeah, right. And so approximately what year would that have been for you?
1992.
Okay.
Yeah.
Taking it way back. So, and the Todd Blucher, or the American fella, did he hang around a while in Queensland? He was certainly gone by the time I was there.
Yeah, no, he was. He was old school, I guess. He was probably well done by. I bumped into him at World Clubs, and I think World Clubs might have been something around like 2002 in Hawaii. I think I bumped into him there. That might have been the last time I saw him.
Nice.
So yeah, it's that's the story of the sport, really, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. It's a small world. You bump into these people that they have profound impact on you jumping in or some aspect of your life, and then you might not see them again, but you may well bump into them somewhere on a sideline. So this is in '92. You start playing. This guy. You start dating a frisbee player. Is that your now wife, or was one before that?
No, we're not going to talk about that anymore, Steph.
Okay,
we're going to move on.
That's like that. But I do want to know what the landscape was like then in Brisbane and Queensland. Was there anything outside of Brisbane at that stage? And what was going on in Brisbane?
Yeah, not a lot in terms of Ultimate. And when I started, there was a small group, and there was probably, I don't know, maybe 100 players, all based at UQ, and including the very first guys that started playing, the very, very first dudes that set it up. They were playing then, and they were young then and could still play. So it had only been going probably a small handful of years. And Sydney and Melbourne were maybe a couple of years older, but really not that long. So I think Ultimate in Australia was probably only got up and running probably in the late 80s, somewhere around 86, 87. I think Australia went to its first Worlds in 88, I believe, was their first. And then they, and from then on, they've been traveling to everything. But in Brisbane, it was very small. Australia was very small community. We all knew each other. We all had good.
Were you playing at multiple parks? Was it multiple nights a week? Was it a UQ only kind of thing, or
pretty much a UQ only, one venue, and then there was sort of a handful of tournaments around the country. There was always one in Melbourne, and then there was one in Queensland, and there was one in Sydney, and then nationals would kind of float around. And there's a small group in Perth as well. So it was the group in Perth, even though they're the other side of the world, they're very active. So we didn't get a lot. A couple of nights a week. Ultimate was about it really, and then a handful of tournaments a year.
Any prominent players at that stage on the Brisbane and the local scene? I mean, I guess you mentioned the prof, but who were kind of who was holding it down, either from an administrative point, but more so like who were kind of when you first started, who were the guys like, oh shit, that guy knows what he's doing?
Yeah, there were a few. There were some old guys who probably before your time, maybe, but there's a bunch of guys who were the rock stars at the time. People like Jonathan Potts was big name back then. Chris Burwell, they were they were the big players in my world at that time. They were Jason Ray, very influential, and all those guys had prominent representative careers wearing the green and gold, and we had a lot of influential women as well playing who were both excellent players and also very important active administrators. People like Kathy Keys, Sally Baston from Sydney. So these are sort of all obviously retired now, hung up the cleats, but it's their work that really
big really part of laying down foundations.
Yeah, for sure.
So now this is the local scene. You get going. Eventually, you're going to a nationals. What was the rep teams in Brisbane like? What would your first nationals have been?
Yeah, my first nationals was in '94, I think, and we played in the Queensland Warlocks, and we got hammered by everybody.
Warlocks. Yeah, I never even heard of them. I thought I asked a lot of questions, but okay, yeah.
And we there was no magic, no magic in the. No, we did all right. I think we did all right. But back then nationals was about 6 teams really, and club based nationals. Really.
Right. 6 teams, and that's what all Sydney, Melbourne, and you guys jump into the fold, maybe, or
one from
Perth
Queensland
kind of makes it.
Yeah, one from Queensland, maybe 2 or 3 from Sydney, a couple from Melbourne, 1 from Perth, and that was about it for the men's division. And the women were probably similar. And New Zealand used to come over as well. So under Gary Jarvis, he was the main sort of mover and shaker back in those days. So
right.
Yeah,
so after the Warlocks, how did the team culture in Queensland evolve?
Yeah,
I got to take a guess that the Buggers would have been Moreton Bay Buggers would have been coming around shortly thereafter.
The Buggers is a great story about the Buggers. It grew slowly. It sort of grew slowly, and then it was just sort of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back over for a few years, and then Jonathan Potts, he turned up. He'd been away in Sydney, and he turned up in Brisbane, and he just sort of lit a fire. And was just super energetic and really motivated, and really strong leader, and certainly in the men's group and also administratively, but certainly in the men's team. And he got a lot of people really motivated, myself included. And so we lined up for the usual campaign. Nationals back then was always over the Anzac Day weekend around Easter, and we had the inevitable debate about what we were going to call ourselves this year, and there was a whole bunch of people who liked some name and a whole bunch of other people who didn't like that name, and I can't play under that name, I want to be something else. So we had this one warm-up tournament. It was kind of the big warm-up tournament before nationals, and we went along and we freaking won it, and we went along as the Moreton Bay Buggers. And that was thanks to Sean Flanagan, who you'll remember.
Yeah, I remember.
And there was a strong opposition to that name. Lots of people did not like that name, did not want to play under that logo. But because we'd won, they were like, oh, well, that's it.
We've set the culture with this one.
With the Moreton Bay Buggers. So and that was good. People really got behind that for a good number of years, and that team was pretty strong for a number of years, and then obviously and stayed on around and played locally as a club for a long time.
Yeah, of course, I knew them in the BPL at that stage, the Brisbane Premier League, and for those of you who are only getting the one side of the pun, the buggery, a Moreton Bay bug is a crustacean lobster-looking like creature. Moreton Bay is in Queensland, very near Brisbane, so there is a little bit of a hook of legitimacy to the name Buggers as well.
Yeah,
a little bit, a tiny little bit, Matty.
They are delicious too, Steph. Delicious.
Yeah, they are absolutely delicious. I love a Moreton Bay bug. I can't wait to sink my teeth into another one. Really, I miss a lot of things about Australia. So I mean, at this stage, okay, the Bugs go a couple years. I know Firestorm happened. Now it's Mammoth in the Open Division. What was happening with the women? Like, the first team I knew was Sultry. Was there a rep team before that?
The women, the women sort of had a number of iterations of different teams over the years, and and they had that thing where they'd have they'd have a strong core, and then they'd grow, and then they'd split off and become two teams, and then maybe one wouldn't work so well, and they'd amalgamate and reform as a different team, and that went on for a few years, pretty much like the men did, I guess, in Brisbane. But there's a good solid Fuse team now. The Fuse Women's Club is pretty well established. Some good leadership in there, and they've got an A team and a B team. They go to nationals, Div 1, Div 2 nationals. They're pretty solid. I can't see them folding. They seem well established, and I think that's probably indicative of Ultimate certainly in Queensland, probably Australia wide now. Teams have settled down. They've got club structures. They've got more legitimate administration. They've got a long-term view.
More legitimate naming across the park.
More legitimate naming. Locally it's more mature. It's more organised. It's more established.
I certainly get that feeling, watching again. Happy to see that Nationals were streamed again this year, but seeing these teams now that, a lot of coaches on sidelines, a lot of administrative staff with teams, uniforms look sharper and nicer. It's a nice product going on out there. And it took a lot of work, a lot of years of these foundation layers like yourself and those alongside. But did you ever play a Nationals with a non-Queensland team, you personally?
No. I played nationals. All my nationals campaigns were all Queensland.
And what was the best showing you ever had at a Nats?
Probably
because it was always pretty tough going for the non-Melbourne Sydney teams. I know that much.
Yeah. We had a great period around that 2000, and then we were pretty solid around 2004 as well. So we had a core of people that were around for a long time, and lots of the guys on our team played representative Ultimate for Australia at either Worlds or World Clubs. So we had a good, strong, solid sort of 10 to 12 people in the team. So
and this is Moreton Bay Bugs days.
Yeah, Moreton Bay Bugs. Yeah, I did play. I had a couple of years of Firestorm after that, but
okay.
By then I was getting a bit too old, so
right.
Kind of started to give the nationals away.
Yeah, that's when you change your game a little bit, and you're like, "Wait, this isn't what I do. Now I'm a role player. What's going on here?"
Until you get tapped on the shoulder and told to come and play Masters, and it's like,
yeah. And as such, so I knew that you played some Masters campaigns for Australia. I know you were a Taipan and a Wombat on either side of the name change. Yep. Did you play? You played some Worlds prior to that in open age category, either
I played
clubs or national.
I played 5 clubs campaigns from 1996 through to 2002, and I played with the Dingoes in Germany at World Champs in 2000.
Okay.
So I played a lot of clubs, but that Dingoes 2000 campaign was my sort of probably the peak of my competitive representative career, I guess.
Nice.
And then I had a break until
I wasn't sure. I had a feeling that you were a dingo, but I was not positive. So happy to get the confirmation. And then so you did say, when I asked the question earlier, for nationals, you played with Queensland teams. For Worlds, if you had 5 club campaigns, were they always with Queensland teams?
No,
or did you play for some Sydney, Melbourne sides?
We sort of had my first most of those campaigns were with a team called King Brown, and they were a kind of all-star sort of Melbourne, Queensland, Perth kind of randoms from all over. Sydney was the powerhouse team or area in Australia back in those days, and Sydney would send 1 or 2 club teams to world clubs, and this is sort of back before the WUC eligibility rules got really kind of hardcore. You could put together a team of whoever from wherever, and they had fairly lax rules about what constituted a club. So we just put these teams together, and so we had three World Clubs campaigns with King Brown. I think
Nice.
Yeah,
I know Teo Brown was a King Brown member. And many others I think I know, but of course I have good friendship with Teo. We still chat a whole bunch.
Yeah, right.
He'll be up in Queensland.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He
never heard of him. Tom who?
Tom Rigacki.
Yeah. He's
something like
playing.
that.
Son of a...
no doubt we'll get onto him in due course. But a lot of good players cycled through that team, that club, and a lot of those guys are still my best mates now. You know, they're very strong, solid network of people that went through those campaigns. They were good fun. You know.
Yeah. So you said 2000 Dingo selection, maybe the peak of your playing days. Probably, you know, I would imagine to say, you know, the best team you've ever been a part of is probably that. That's what I was going to ask. But greatest tournament you've ever attended, or like campaign, like maybe the winning of a tournament makes it greater. Either way, you can answer that.
Yeah, it's a funny one. And I wouldn't say that Dingoes campaign was probably the peak of my playing. It was certainly the peak, like representatively, probably possibly the strongest team I'd played on. But I played a lot of Kaimana tournaments around sort of the mid 2000s, and we had a pickup team of again sort of weirdly unaffiliated but kind of superstar guys from all over Canada, North America, and Europe, Aussies, Kiwis, some Poms as well, and so we played Kaimana, probably 6 years in a row, and we got to the final there, and we got done in the final by some American superstar pickup team, probably I think Bay Area guys, but that was probably for me personally, I think probably the peak of my playing career. I was right at that kind of like early 30s age, and just kind of by then playing long enough to know my own game pretty well, still had all the skills, still was fast enough and fit enough and athletic enough to be playing personally well in a team of really good players who played without fear. And plus it's Kaimana, you know, you're there to enjoy it. And
I've never been to Kaimana. What makes Kaimana? I think I've definitely heard stories here and there, and it's still on my bucket list. I don't know what I'm going to do there if I go now, because I sure as hell ain't going to play, but I still want to be there for some reason. But yeah, tell us a bit about Kaimana.
Look, it's just such a great tournament. You know, you camp under these casuarina trees right on the beach, and there's just this, you know, Hawaiian swell just pumping in from the Pacific. And you wake up in your tent and you go down to the fields, which are a 10-minute walk away. And you know, and my first year, they had these trucks that pulled up, they're sponsored by a local brewery, and these trucks pulled up on the side of the field, and they just had beer taps hanging out the side of the truck. So like they were there all night. They were, you know, so people would go to Kaimana for different reasons, but there was pretty much just an endless supply of free beer, which was good. But also free, like everything was provided, the whole shebang. You didn't have to pay for anything at any point. It was all done, all services, the whole shebang. And you had this great environment because it's in Hawaii. Yes, it's America, but it's the middle Pacific. So it feels like everybody's just coming from around the world to this little island in the Pacific. Magnificent backdrop, huge volcanic cliffs, good fields, not great fields, but good fields, but incredible backdrop. And then just a really, really chilled organizing committee. Everybody there was just super happy to be there. So it was all very, very friendly, very social, awesome fun, but just absolute rock star ultimate players from all around the world, you know. And no
at super high level, with all the shebangs, and you're in Hawaii.
Yeah, and you're in Hawaii. So on one hand you got all this fun stuff, but on the other hand you got these teams where there's no eligibility rules. So that like these guys from the Bay Area would go, hey, I want to play with those guys from the East Coast and those guys from Canada and those two guys from Germany and that Finnish guy. and who somebody knows who says he's an absolute legend and the best player in Europe. We should get him over. And so they'd build these super teams who were just you wouldn't get them together in a different context, just other than hey, come to this tournament in Hawaii, and so that's what they did, and it just worked brilliantly. So we went there. Well, I went there 6 years in a row, and every year just got better and better and better. And it was, I think, Steph, you would understand that when you build a super team that is on, indestructible and unbeatable, that all you're doing is just putting a big flag up that says, "Hey, build your own super team and come and beat us."
Yeah. Come on. So, I understand very well.
I think you're well aware of how that works, and that's
But that's you want to bring it on. Come on, we're gonna do it next year. So take your shot. Take your shot.
Yeah. So
that team at some stage was known as Brass. Is that right? Or
no, that was Doughboy.
Doughboy, yes.
Doughboy,
yes.
Yeah,
I've seen your jerseys. You have told me some of these stories, in fact, and
sure.
I do remember bits and pieces. Sweet. Hey, I talked at the start about how, UQ was pretty much all of Queensland Ultimate. I know you're not officially administrating as part of CUDA, the Queensland Ultimate Disc Association, but I know you have been associated with them before. And I know a lot of the people on your tournament organizing committee are associated with them. But just give us how the landscape has changed, kind of like where are kind of hubs or cells of Ultimate being played now? Can you give us a bit of a list off of what the growth has been like, or whereabouts you can get into some Ultimate there?
Look, it's a sort of tricky question, because like everything around the world, when COVID came, everything just sort of stopped and shut down, so there was this big, I think there was a fairly clear kind of upwards trajectory of growth, and then COVID came and everything kind of stalled and went backwards a little bit. So we're still probably recovering from that. And as you said, I'm not involved with it anymore, but I think, it's still really Southeast Queensland based. There's a good group up in Cairns who are solid, and they've been up there working for a long time. There's still a group on the Gold Coast, but they're probably, they've been up and down over the years. How
about Townsville? Are they still going?
Yeah, I have a feeling maybe not as much in Townsville. I think Cairns is really but I don't really know, so I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But look, what has grown is the youth area. There's much more. So they've gone, I think the administration now is much more formal. It's much more kind of doing things by the book, which is good, and it's necessary. And certainly you don't get growth in the youth environment without that kind of, regulation and doing things properly. And we didn't do that probably nearly as well as we could have back 20 years ago. So that part of it is growing, and there's a bunch of the juniors that were in England a couple of weeks ago playing at the Juniors Ultimate who came out of the Juniors program. So they're doing that much better, and we'll see the growth of that in 2, 3, 4 years' time. That's when those players will flow through, and they'll become team leaders and coaches and whatnot in their own clubs, and furthermore, they've had a good relationship with the state government and, in fact, the federal government through the Sporting Schools program. So I know that's borne a lot of fruit. So there's been a large investment of federal government money, national money, into that program, allowing schools to access proper coaching resources,
nice.
and being able to expose school age kids, and probably more, or just as importantly, the PE staff, into what Ultimate is as a legitimate thing, rather than just being some sort of stocking stuffer that you gotta
I was just sent a picture 2 days ago of the school I used to work at, Somerset College, a swanky little private school out in Mudriba in the Gold Coast. They've got a beautiful new field with outdoor lights, and they have an internal Ultimate League, and it's totally part of the curriculum and has been for the last 4 or 5 years now. And but Troy, who he used to play for Slam Town, but sent me a photo. He's like, this has come a long way from when you were here, but there was 2 classes, discs in hand, running throwing drills at a year 8 level, and it's pretty cool to see that. You see the success France is having on a junior level. We were talking about that with somebody else, but I wasn't quite sure why. And and there was a big assumption that, or a bit of hearsay that yes, it's the same thing where it's been properly implemented into the school systems. The kids are playing, and the results come quickly.
Yeah. So I think maybe we're a little bit behind Europe and North America in that sense. It's taken our junior program quite a while to get up and running. But sport, as you know, sport in Australia, it's such a competitive market for a relatively small population that for a new sport to come along and get access to schools and get the attention of the PE teachers that are really responsible for driving it, you've got to have something going for you to secure their interest and their attention. And I think I just sense that probably we're starting to get over that hump, and that those schools programs are starting to embed themselves better, and we're going to see the benefit of that maybe in 2, 3, 4 years' time. I mean, 32 Olympics are in Brisbane, and it's the kids playing now that are going to be in the national representative teams. Fingers crossed.
Come on, IOC, make the right choice then.
That's right.
That one's beyond us, but let's hope the Olympics in Brisbane can showcase it. But no matter what,
it's not totally beyond us, Steph. It's not totally beyond us. We got
hey, squeaky wheel gets the grease, Matty. Squeaky wheel. Let's keep pushing.
We're pushing.
Yeah. So this is Matt Ryan. He is an actual human being, not just a tournament director who sends out emails and organizes the committee. But now we are going to talk a little bit about your job and what you've been doing. And we'll start with location and bid. When did you put this bid in, and why for the Gold Coast as a Brisbaneite? Gold Coast is about an hour down the road, maybe a little bit more. But talk about the beginning, the why and how, kind of.
Yeah, well, I guess it goes back probably 22 years when I came back from a Worlds, and I was running our state championships, and one of my buddies was like, "Hey, we just had an awesome time in wherever it was that we played," and then we were playing this local tournament, and it was like, "Hey, this is probably big enough. There's enough fields here. We could play Worlds." And that kind of that conversation started this sort of chain of thoughts in my head about, well, maybe we could play Worlds. And then over 20 years, it just built and built and built. But it really started because I was working as the development officer for Queensland Ultimate in the Sports House, which is the sort of multi-sport facility in Brisbane, where they provide office space and facilities for all of the headquarters for each of the sports in the state. And there was a little buzz that Brisbane had received preferred host status for the 2032 Olympics. And then, a whole bunch of things started to happen. It was like, well, how do we leverage that? Like, what does that mean for us? Does that mean something for us? That was about 2016 when we started to get that information. Worlds was on in London at that time. And so I was watching that a lot and just kind of following how that was going and seeing what it looked like and thinking, well, hang on, maybe if we were to host Worlds here in Australia, particularly in Brisbane or around Brisbane, that might just shift a bit of focus onto the sport and help elevate the sport in those people of power and influence who work in the IOC and in around that area. That Ultimate might be a legitimate contender. And at that time, they had just made the announcement for the new sports that were going to be held in Tokyo for 2020, which ended up being 2021. And so typically when the IOC announces the new sports, they announce it around the time of the previous Olympics. So I thought, right, well, so 2032 for Brisbane. If we can get ourselves in and around, or have a World somewhere around whether that's 4 years or 8 years prior to that, and that kind of gets the people who are in the sports industry just talking about the sport and whether this might be applicable. So there's a few things that sort of strategically just lined up with hosting the World Championships in Southeast Queensland at that time. So the choice between Gold Coast and Brisbane. Gold Coast, first of all, it's got the beach. It's a great place to stay. So we've got everybody for the tournament staying at Surfers Paradise. So they can finish up their games and they can wander the 2 blocks down from their hotel down to the beach, and they can swim, down on the beach. And that's just a fantastic finish to your day or start to your day, whatever you like. So it's a lovely spot. It really is. And there's a good field. There's a good sports complex down there with good facilities and good fields, and enough of them that we could run the event there. So, location tick, fields and facilities tick. And then if we could get it at the right time of the year, and there's a sweet spot for the year, and you'd know this because you lived there for years, but that springtime on the Gold Coast is just magnificent time, beautiful temperature, usually blue skies, no rain, all of that sort of stuff. So if we could line all that sort of stuff up, then it would mean that, we had the basic ingredients to make the event work. And, and we were able to do that. So,
yeah, so, nice. I can go on.
I was just going to say Brisbane is great, but it just didn't have quite the same kind of appeal if you're a visitor coming. It's just another city. And I love Brisbane, I really do. But for a visitor, if I had my choice of putting them in a hotel in the city or putting them in a hotel on
the beach,
a block away from the beach at Surfers, then I'd personally choose that. So plus the Gold Coast, it's an event town. It's set up for events. Sporting events in particular, are a big part of its economy, and so it is, as far as the local government goes, they're set up to attract and deliver and assist event organisers to host events. So there's a lot of corporate or kind of government support that also made it an attractive place to host the bid.
Nice. Good to have that kind of support. Makes it that much easier. I was going to interject at one stage. I can definitely attest to the time of year is magnificent. It's East Coast. You get your sunrises over the horizon, your sunsets over the hinterland. But it is, it's just magic. Sometimes you need a wetsuit if you're staying in the water a long time in the winter in the Gold Coast, but it is kind of like all year round you can jump in the water. You've got your very tourist-centric Surfers Paradise, and I think it's the perfect place for people to stay for 1 week. But even, to explore the Gold Coast top to bottom, Coolangatta to the Spit and up to South Stradbroke Island, you can have your quiet little suburbs with point breaks, river mouths coming in. There's really a bit of everything there. So I like the choice. I asked the question no matter what, but I was there for nearly a decade. I absolutely love the Gold Coast and am very excited to be back. A question that seems to have come up across the, Europeans mostly, is that it's a tough year. There hasn't been a Worlds in 8 years. Economic situation not so good globally right now. There's a concentration of Europeans. Why do we got to go to Australia right now? What can you say to kind of validate having Worlds there to respond to something like that?
Yeah, look, it's a good question, and at the end of the day, we put the bid in, and WUF, awarded us the hosting rights. So ultimately, that decision's a WUF decision, and obviously, we're very, very thankful for it. So I can't speak for why WUF made that decision. I think they saw the strategic benefits and the alignment with Brisbane 32. I think they understood that. They also probably recognise that historically there's been a very Northern Hemisphere centric kind of focus on hosting ultimates in the Northern Hemisphere, which is true. It's the World Championships has never been hosted in the Southern Hemisphere at all. It's the first time. And Australians have been very loyal and committed travellers to World Championship events going back to 1988, which I think was in Bruges. So not that there's necessarily a reward for doing that, but I think there's maybe perhaps a feeling that if our bid was good enough and strong enough that it was our turn. So look, I understand it's a tough year coming out of COVID. Airfares had a big spike. They were expensive and took a long time to come down. They are starting to come down now, which is nice. But certainly economically, it was a tough time for a lot of people. So probably is a more expensive journey, certainly for Europeans to come to Australia. That said, if it was held in Europe, we'd go to Europe and we'd play it, and it doesn't matter where it is. We'd go to Antarctica to play. I was thinking about this the other day. I don't think there's many countries in the world or many playing groups in the world that invest or commit as much time and energy and money into travelling to play Ultimate than Australians, or maybe our Kiwi cousins across the ditch, who really understand what the travel commitments and the expenses are for that. To put it into context, we've got a bunch of people who are coming from Perth, who are representing Australia at these World Championships, and they're based in Perth. Now, Perth to Brisbane is something like Moscow to Madrid. It's Europe to North America. That's and they're coming for training camps, they're coming for training sessions, they're coming for selection camps, they're playing tournaments. So I shudder to think about the air miles that those folks have clocked up and the money that they've spent doing that. So that's the level of commitment that requires. If you want to compete at World Championships, if you want to win World Championships, and if you want to get better from playing at World Championships, then that's what you got to do.
And I think an even further testament to everything you said is the fact that in a World's year, every Australian team traveled internationally to get their warm-up games and to make sure they're hardened before they play on home soil.
Yep, that's right. In fact, the Dingoes are in the States right now, playing a warm-up event. So, look, that's what's required. It's what's required, and look, we would have loved to have hosted 100 teams from 40 countries. We would have loved to have done that, and Australian teams that have travelled to World Championships have received the hospitality of all of those countries for the many times that they've been there, and we'd love to be able to return that hospitality to our international travelling teams. And as it turned out, like that's. We didn't get quite as many countries and teams turning up as we would have liked. The other side of that is that all the big ones are coming. So it kind of flattens out the quality of the draws in each of the different divisions. So there's not really those first few days of pool games where previously teams might have 2 or 3 relatively easy games before they get out of their pool and move into the next pool. That's not going to happen. They might have 1 easy game in their pool now, and then it's tough. So there's a smaller draw for each of the divisions, but they're all tough.
What kind of effect do you think it did have in the end? Like you said, 100 teams, 40. What is the final?
49 teams, 23 countries.
Okay.
So, we're roughly half the size of what it perhaps would have been. It probably would have been 100 and something if it had been in Europe somewhere. I think across the 3 divisions, after WUC split out the Masters division, so London was the last time they had the combined Masters division. Leeuwarden in the Netherlands in 2020, they had split it out, but unfortunately that event didn't get off the ground due to COVID. And they would have had 130 teams or thereabouts. Right. And, there's obviously some fairly major geopolitical kind of factors that have come into play since then as well, which have knocked out a bunch of smaller teams that would have otherwise not made it. So yeah, we're probably half the size, and we set up. I mean, our bid was to host 100 teams. We had the venue for it. We had a couple of venues. We had the fields for it. We had the infrastructure lined up, and the support from the government to go for that. And it turns out that that's not what we got. But I'm actually really pleased with what we've got, because they're high quality teams, and yet it's actually a very manageable size event. So
yeah.
We can invest.
I think you're absolutely right with that. The best teams are going to be there. Of course, Worlds for the last few years, or a few iterations, even though we've missed since London, have the qualifying nature for World Games now. So anybody who's interested in World Games is sending 3 teams. That means every nation that is in the upper echelon are there. It kind of it's tough to say what I'm going to say. It cuts out the fluff, but it does. And it's tough because some of the fluff is not there because of economic reasons, and that sucks. But at the same token, a team like Belgium Open, probably a team that financially, didn't have it economically as far as what Belgium is as a nation, not dripping euros out the pockets. But that's a team that knows they get a chance. They can swing it with the best at this event, and they want to be there. And I think that's these kind of stories are great stories that are coming out of coming. And I think at the end of the day, everybody who ends up getting on that plane and going to the Gold Coast Worlds is going to be thanking themselves very much for doing so and enjoying the tournament that you guys are about to put on, but also just having a chance to get to the Gold Coast in spring, as you alluded to earlier.
Yeah, and we're really conscious of the responsibility we've got. That those teams are really, they're it's a stretch for them. I mean, this tournament, I think we've got for the first time, Panama and Argentina are sending representative teams. Now, Argentina to Australia that's a big mission, and Panama the same. So we've got teams that are coming, sending their first representative teams to World Championships. And they're probably, it's not easy for them to do that. And so, we respect that, and we're going out of our way to make sure that their experience is a worthwhile one. We're conscious of our responsibility there. We'll do our best to make sure that they have not just a good tournament, but a good time.
Nice. You talk about we'll do our best. Talk a bit about who the we is on the tournament organizing committee. Who else are you doing? Who else is doing some heavy lifting, and some of the other faces that are have been involved for a while? And then maybe when after you give those shout outs, just tell me a little bit about the breadth of where the volunteers will be coming from.
Sure. So we've got 2 assistant directors working with me. So it's Natalie Robinson and Jack Lilwall. Now, they've been around a long time. Jack's a serial junkie tournament attendee and administrator, and I'm pretty sure that there's very few players in Europe that wouldn't have run into him at some point, somewhere in Europe. So he's a very, very active guy in that space, and really enthusiastic and super helpful. And Natalie's pretty much run the show locally for many years now. She's now currently the development officer in Queensland. So these are 2 just full-time committed ultimate organisers and players, and so they're exceptionally. I'm really lucky to have them working with me on it, because they know a lot. And to be honest, there's so much stuff that I don't know about ultimate, really, the modern game. So they're excellent. And then behind that is a crew of kind of, I guess, portfolio managers taking care of everything from infrastructure, HR management, volunteers, merchandising and uniforms, health, catering, accommodation, blah 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 blah. There's so people names in that: Maylin, who Maylin Shua, Bruce McNaughton, Peter McNaughton.
Of course, the McNaughtons are going to be part of the.
Of course they are.
Of course they are.
And then Simon Farrow you would know from Sydney, is taking over the competition management side of things, and my good buddy from Canada, Giles Deschen, is coming over.
Yeah, wow.
And so he's going to be emceeing and looking after VIPs and kind of taking care of protocols. So we've got a mix of, I guess, old and new. You know, and like any organising committee, it really, you know, it doesn't fall on one set of shoulders or three sets of shoulders. It's got to fall across a team of people doing it, and you know, I'm pretty lucky to have all of those folks working with me. You know, I feel pretty good about where we are now with it.
Sounds like a heck of a team.
Yeah. So to talk about your question about volunteers, we opened the volunteer register. We had a volunteer registration portal, and we advertised that via social media. And we had a number of volunteers trickle into that portal, registering to come and work at the event, which was great. And then I think we had a closing date for that registration, and we advertised that closing date was coming up. And you know, within the space of about 24 hours, we had 150 volunteers, people applying for positions. So much so that we filled our roster completely and had to shut the portal down. And then I had angry emails from people who were saying, "Why can't I come and volunteer at your event?" You know. So at this point in time, we've got about 55 full-time volunteers, and they come from about, I don't know, 9 or 10 different countries. So, you know, there's a handful of locals, lots of interstaters, heaps of Kiwis, Americans, Canadians, French, Italians, people from Southeast Asia. Yeah, they're from all over. So
nice.
I'm really excited about that. That's such a kind of interesting and a part of the event that delivers so much kind of culture and atmosphere to the event. So I'm really
Can I ask who the volunteer coordinator will be?
Oh, Peter McNaughton's looking after the.
Oh, that's a good selection.
The workforce. So, you know, I suspect we'll all be kind of involved in making sure that they're all gainfully employed. You know, we've got a bit to do there to make sure that they're all kind of fully allocated. But at the end of the day, if you've got enough arms and legs, then, you know, things will work. So
amazing. So you got a great crew on the ground, of course, for an event like this. It's, you know, you got to plug in a few different parts. There's requirements, I guess. There's some overseeing parties. There's some, so yeah, like I said, some plugins. I know right out the gate, there's got to be some association with the WFDF, the AFDA. I'm not sure, but I imagine they've got to be working with you guys for this. I know with Ulti-World, I'll be there with Ulti-World. I'm excited about that. But yeah, how's that kind of the coordination with these other external federations? How's it all looking? How does that kind of manage itself in before the event?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a complicated process when you have all these different stakeholders, and at the end of the day, it's a WFDF event, and WFDF set the rules, and we follow them. so look, we WFDF this is what they do, and they've got a team of people who know what they're doing, and you know, they've just rolled out of juniors, and prior to that, they had a masters, and they run 4 or 5 events every year, and have done for a long time. So they're pretty well established procedures, and you know, sure, we had probably a bit of a rocky start with them because, to be honest, we didn't know what we were doing really, or rather, we knew what we were doing in one context, but you know, there's a lot of it's a different thing to run a Worlds than it is to run your local state tournament or even your national championships. So yeah, we had to kind of work that stuff out, but that's all right. And the event team from WFDF are very, very good, very, you know, really responsive and have been very helpful. So you know, but then we've got a relationship with the council and the local government, and they're also a funding partner for us. And so they've got their requirements. They've given us some money, and we've got to make sure that we deliver the benefits to all of the partners and sponsors that they expect. And, you know, we've got a broadcast partner who has expectations about, you know, how they fit into it. So yeah, it's a fun game, that whole business of making sure that all those different stakeholders are all engaged and all working together is that's part of the skill, and that's where I guess it transcends being an ultimate player to a kind of low level tournament organizer to suddenly Worlds. It's it's the full corporate experience right now for me. So which is great, which is like that's what I hoped for. It's what I signed up for. So I'm learning a lot about it, and at the end of the day, the great thing about it is that that everybody is, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, and that is for the event to be a success, and for the people that are coming, and that is really the players and the teams and their supporters, to have a good time. So whenever we have any kind of disagreements about how things are done, we'll sort of go back to that founding principle and then work back from there, and we'll generally we'll resolve any issues that we've got. So and I believe that that's I don't think we've got any people in it who are trying to make money out of it or profiteer from the event or get something that doesn't ultimately have the best interests of the players and the teams at heart, and making sure that we run a tournament that legitimately makes sure that we find a world champion and award the winning teams. That's what it's
the exciting stuff. The competition, of course. I guess for you, it's been the marathon, and then you're going to put yourself in the eye of the storm for the sprint session at the end, and it'll probably, I'd imagine, be over before you know it. Once that first pull goes up, you're going to be in the eye of the shitstorm. And again, I've never done a Worlds on an administrative level like this, but been to many, done some nationals, done lots of tournaments, and I know how those go. So I wish you luck through it all. But you've done the hard yards, and as much as putting yourself in the eye of the storm is going to be a tornado of emotions and management, personality management, trying to maintain harmony and this and that. It is where all the reward of your hard work will come into, kind of. So I hope you get yourself a few minutes to kind of just sit back and take it all in. You're probably only going to get a few of those minutes amidst it. But what are your plans after the tournament when this is all said and done? I mean, surely a little bit of housekeeping and tidying up loose ends that won't end. But when the tournament's over, where's Matt Ryan going?
Yeah, we've strung out the contract for me personally until the end of the year. So there's about 3 months of close down at the end of it, which is cool. All the stress will be off by then. So it's just sort of writing reports and closing out books and making sure all the money's reconciled and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. I'm going to take a week off. Sandra and the kids and I are going to go to Japan for a week, and probably drink a lot of beer.
Kirin, is it over there, or Asahi?
I don't care, Steph.
Crack them open.
And then next year I got some fun stuff planned. Some travel planned. So, next year will be a new chapter. I don't know what's going to happen next year, but.
Well, maybe we can sit down at some stage while we're in the Gold Coast, and you can tell me that. I'll look forward to knowing.
I'm sure you've got some ideas, Steph.
Yeah. Spearfishing comes to mind, but I'm not sure what it is. I don't know. Before, as we're talking about your ambition in Japan, asking for a friend, not that I'm interested in at all, but will there be an official party?
Yeah, there is. So we're I'm going with the Kaimana model, and that is we've got so our venue is a greenfields venue. It's just a big expanse of fields, right? Just fields, no infrastructure at all. So we're bringing everything in. We're going down the Kaimana model, which was to basically have the finals on a grandstand field. We've built a bespoke ultimate arena. So we're not playing on a football field where we've got grandstands that are 30 meters from the sideline. We're building the whole arena so that it's wrapping the field tight
bringing in all of the grandstands. So we've got this, what I hope will be a really, really cool, unique kind of tailored ultimate arena. And so we'll roll through the 3 finals on the final day, and then we'll do the medal presentations and photos and all of that ceremony that goes with that. And then there'll be probably 1 or 2 speeches as a closing ceremony. And then as soon as we've finished that, we'll put some bands on the main stage and some DJs, and the finals field will become the dance floor. The bar will be open. We've got 10 or 12 food trucks going. So there'll be food, there'll be booze, there'll be music, and that'll roll on through until the night. And then people can bugger off and go home.
Get out of here! I'm done. I'm sure there'll be an after party. If nobody else organizes it, I'll get my hands around that one. But I'd imagine Dusty or somebody's got to be have something up their sleeve for an after party as well.
Yeah. I've actually taken a few inquiries about that, and there's some motivated people. So
get them in touch with me, because I would like to.
Your name has already been dropped, Steph. Don't worry. So you're in the mix.
And I'm already planning on having a super team invite everyone pick up on Sunday at Currumbin Beach. So anybody who's watching, if you're gonna be at Worlds and you're sticking around, let's say a pre-sunset, party pickup. Let's have a beer, throw a frisbee, jump in the surf. But there'll be lots happening. Last question, Matt. You said, you're not so in touch with Ultimate, but you did say that that a lot of strong teams are coming. There's some easy ways to predict, but give me 3 finals matchups. I'm going to make you have a little bit of a prediction here. I know it's a little bit out of your element, but that's what I'm going to hold you to finish things off.
You'll get me into trouble by saying that, but it's obviously hard to look past the US. In every division. I don't know when the last time the US lost a game at World Championships. So
I think 2008 finals in Vancouver and Open. Japan, women in Japan, they lost to the Japanese. But yes, there's few and far between.
So I think it would be fairly safe to say that the US will be there or thereabouts in each of the divisions, and that's the next interesting question, is who are they up against, and it's a funny time because we missed 2020, and so we don't have that benchmark of how some of the teams have gone. Now I know the US have travelled to some of the tournaments in Europe, and the Aussies have travelled to tournaments in Europe in each of the divisions. I feel like the Dingoes are strong. I feel like they'll be up there or thereabouts, semi-finals. I don't know enough about the other teams to really make big predictions. The women are hard. The US, obviously, Japan have been so strong, Colombia have been so strong for a while. It kind of feels like
Colombia beat them this year at TEP in that warm-up tournament.
Yeah, so and then the mixed division, well, that's probably the hardest one of all to pick, really. There's probably a lot of turnover in the mixed division, so I struggle with that one. Probably, and it's one of those things where maybe a team on their day can roll a team that might have travelled well through the tournament. So I'm not gonna make a prediction about the mixed. So, I just don't have enough information about. I mean, France has been so good lately. Italy's so strong. Belgium, in the men's division. GB can always bring it, and they sort of they seem to bring it against certain opponents. But the games are so close. Like, we had a training camp. The Dingoes played the New Zealand men's team at a training camp a few weeks ago down here on the Gold Coast, and the Kiwis beat them in the first game. And all right, that's only a training camp game,
but still, yeah, it's either anybody. It is the parity is showing on the international stage. U.S. still seem to be head and shoulders above, but it could be a year they fall. I'll let you get off the hook with that as your prediction. That's a nice way to tiptoe around it a little bit to have it.
It was pathetic. It was pathetic. I'm sorry.
I thought the easy out for you was USA, Australia in every division.
Sure. I think so.
Okay. I've said last question twice now. I think it's going to be windy at Runaway Bay. Is that something that players should be very mindful about before they get there? Prepare to play in some wind.
Yeah,
it can get breezy out that way.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, look, it's August is sort of the windiest period of the year, so we're generally coming off the back of that really windy bit. But it's a seaside location, and the sea breezes happen. So
throwers and veterans. Is this the year of the GAC?
Yeah. Is there not a year of the GAC?
Seriously.
I'm not sure there's ever not been a year of the GAC, but look, there will be a bit of wind. There's no doubt about it. So if you're not used to that, then
you should be at Worlds.
Well, you got 3 weeks.
Yeah. Go figure it out. Get to your windiest beach. Go play in front of some turbines or something. Listen, Matt Ryan, a absolute pleasure to get you on the horn and to twist some info out of you here. It's been great to kind of catch up on a bit of Queensland Ultimate, how you fit in Australian Ultimate, and then of course all the work you've been doing for the tournament. So thank you very much for your time. I'm very much looking forward to getting over there. I hope everybody watching is looking forward to doing the same, either physically or getting on at Ulti World and being able to watch and take it all in. It's going to be one heck of a show, but thank you very, very much for your time.
Excellent, Steph. Thank you for having me, and we'll see you in a few weeks' time.
Thanks again for joining on Best Perspective. Matt Ryan with us this time. We'll be wrapping things up. We'll have a patron-only portion to follow that up. Thanks for joining. We'll catch you next time.
Cheers, mate. See ya.
Always great to have an old friend on the show, and especially an old friend who's doing great things and sitting in a very important seat to steer the ship of Worlds. Great thanks to Matt Ryan. We're back with Noah, and we're going to talk more about that very same tournament, WUC 2024 in the Gold Coast. Let's move into the women's division, Noah. Two pools of 6. It's a 12-team division. Shakes out a little bit differently, but let's talk about the pools first.
In Pool A, we started with the US, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, France, and China. What do you think about this pool stuff?
Yeah, I mean, both pools are going to be difficult. It's 2 pools, 6 teams. There's going to be some tough matches. U.S. have lost a World Finals to Japan in 2012. Same thing I said about the Open team. Japan don't give you too much to study. You don't know. They have, let's say, maybe been on a bit of a decline on the club scene and on the world game scene since their dominance back then. But I would never take them for granted, or not for granted, but take them lightly rather. Australia women, I think, are going to be very strong. They tied Germany in Germany this year after a big travel. They played them super tight. No, they didn't tie. They lost on Universe Point. They had them, I think they went 1-1 though. Anyways, they had a very strong competition. They lost, they did win AOUGC, I believe, too, or lost in the final. No, I think they won. They did win the Firetails. They've got a great roster. Kat Phillips, of course, Danny Alexander, Lucy Deller, a whole lot of Ellipsis women. Kat Smith is on that team, an absolute bomb dropper. She's got the buttery biscuits, I think, that Liam spoke about were initially named for Kat Smiths back at an AOUGC in China. So they are, they're going to be tough. They have not traditionally been high ranking. They kind of have let themselves down at Worlds. So this is a home Worlds. All chips are in for this one. They've got everybody. They've got kind of the veterans who still got some left. They're on the team. They've got the youth there. They've got it happening. So I think Australia will push the US the most. New Zealand, I'm still catching up, trying to figure out who they got, what they're going to do here. Don't know enough about them. And the French, I do know enough about. The French have struggled. That is what I know. This year, their warm-ups have not been super great. Losing to a lot of club teams at Tom's. They didn't go to Windmill. They had a training camp instead. The Freiburg tournament, they didn't fare so well. They are lacking chemistry, I believe. They have some veteran leadership that I think has great experience and great knowledge of the game and tactic, but I'm not sure they have captured the youth the way they might need to. The French have been performing very well in every division and at the big events, even in the Olympics when we're not talking about Ultimate. So maybe that magic is still in the air. But until they've proven it is, I see France, fighting to stay out of the basement of this division. They've got they should beat China, but I think that's going to be it. So I will say switch Australia and Japan, and I think that's how the division will go. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the big fights are at the 2-3 and the 4-5 place, and that's the important places for which power pool will you get into and how the rest of the tournament shakes out for you. Australia versus Japan. I think I'm also going to edge Australia there. And for New Zealand versus France, I'm kind of with you as well. Like, I think the big hit for France as well with their results is EUC, and in 2023 they had quite a poor EUC. This French women's team has not looked fantastic as of late. So I'm going to match you. I'm going to say it's chalk except for a switch between Australia and Japan.
Okay, let's look into Pool B. Why don't you take us through it?
So in Pool B, we have Colombia, Canada, Germany, GB, Singapore, and Chinese Taipei.
Ay.
More of a three here at the top.
Yeah, I think it's a top three, flip them, and bottom three, flip them. Wow, no, bottom three, I think. Anyways, I'll let you break it down first.
Yeah, I think that you could make more arguments in favor of Canada and Germany had not Colombia women beaten USA women. That's massive, right?
Yeah.
Germany women,
US don't lose often.
Right? You can be the biggest Anna Gurner fanboy in the world, but Colombia women have beat the US, and Canada. I'm sorry. There's just there's too much similarity between. Canada haven't been amazing. Their top end is still super good, like Britt Dos Santos and Anushka Beaudry, but it's a smaller country and population-wise, size-wise, enormous. But I think that their depth of their team is not going to be where it is for Germany or Colombia. Steph here are going to take Colombia number 1, Germany number 2, Canada number 3. Looking more towards the bottom of the pool, I think.
Hang on, say that again for me.
Colombia 1, Germany 2, Canada 3.
Okay.
And then at the bottom, I'm just going chalk. I think GB is a bit better than Singapore, and Singapore is probably going to be a decent chunk better than.
I quite like that. I'm not sure if I'm too indifferent. I might see Germany taking the pool.
Oh, wow.
Now, I know that Germany is going to be good in pool play. Colombia, God, this is tough. That is tough. Even Canada, I don't want to count them out, but I think they are going to be 3.
What would happen in a Germany beating Colombia? What does that game look like? What style? Is it high turnover, low turnover? Is it a windy game, non-windy game?
Yeah, I mean, I just watched the U.S. Colombia analysis that was out on Ulti World, a quick vid. Colombian style is fast moving offense, fast pace. They want to move the disc and change the angle of attack. Germany is a little bit more, I think, versatile. They can play that game. They've got the handling unit with Levka plays kind of a Colombian style herself. She is not the central figure or the only central figure and does not dictate the style of their play, but they can kind of play their game a little bit more. If Germany plays their game and they did have a little bit more of a north-south, they can use their height across more matchups. They can use the big throwing of Anna Gerner. They might be able to, like, I think that is just going to be a epic battle. I think it is a great clash of styles. I think they've got superstar power. I give the superstar power to Colombia. I still think the Cardenas twins are the best 1-2 female matching players in the world. I think you put Valeria first, but I don't know. Like, Manu steps up so frequently, like it could easily be Manu 1, Valeria 2. In any sense, you get the star power. The big Colombian receiver, I'm trying to find her name right now, and I'll find it as I keep thinking, but she was Jessica Grayales was a force to be reckoned with in that game against the U.S. A lot of goals in the second half. She went downfield, a broad-shouldered woman. You can't forget about Montaña, Mosquera. It's just, again, we're not supposed to be breaking down the team, but this pool is exciting. This is the most exciting pool so far that we've discussed. Yeah. So,
and yes,
am I saying Germany?
Yes,
am I doing it? No, I don't think so. I'm saying it's going to be Colombia. I'm saying exact same as you.
Oh, he almost made a bold prediction, everyone.
All that, but I think those three. And now Australia. Now this is a knock to Australia. Those three could very well be the semifinalists with USA.
Yeah. No, I think that.
Australia, Japan, this is a tough division. Like, the fact that we're not even considering GB as like a top 6 team, like they could make a quarter, but that's about it. Based on the talent, that top 6 is super strong. I think USA has to stand tall above. And because of what Colombia did, you have to put them level. Colombia did it on home soil early season. It's a bit different, but they still beat the U.S. So that is something that they're going to be taking and campaigning with them.
One thing I want to say about that Colombian team is no Mosquera, if I'm reading the roster correctly. I'm pretty sure I've heard that as well. So
no, she's on there.
She's on there? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I saw her.
What?
She had, maybe her first name is different. You're right. I don't see. I could have sworn I just saw her.
See Mosquera.
Rodriguez, Cardenas, Posada, Pereiro, Cartagena, Quintana, Espina. You're right. She's not on that roster. She's definitely in their training videos, and she was introduced on their Instagram account.
Interesting. So something's wrong, or maybe she's just training with them. But it means that if that is true, Jessica Grajales is going to have to be, step into that role basically. It's like as the A1 deep receiver, and
yes.
I'm more interested on her deep receiving defense, right? Because certainly in Europe, I don't think teams in the women's division have been able to live with the German women's teams hucking, especially their D-line hucking as well.
I mean, they're just so deep. They got Priyan, they got Libet, they got who was over there with Levka in Brute Squad the first year.
Lena Troutman.
Troutman, is she on this team? I don't see her name.
Mixed.
I
think she's
Yeah.
because I think she played mixed in 2023 with Levka, and Levka moved across. So maybe Lily's still playing on that mixed squad.
And they've got Inya Nades, who is a big body. Yeah, they're gonna the Germans can definitely play the let's air it out game.
Yeah.
Joanna Erdmann, they are gonna be good. A lot of jinx on there, but not exclusively. I mean, Schall, Gerner, Priyan, and Gerner running the offense. Like, come on, that's incredible. That is.
Lee Berth was on that World Games team, right? As well, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many of their top players. I would love to see Troutman on this team, personally.
Yeah, she must be on the mixed. Well, anyways, let's get the heck out of here. We got to get to the mixed now.
You're right.
So women's is let's talk about how it goes a little bit first, because there is a crossover. The crossover is the top pool is 1 and 2 from each division. If you win that pool, you go straight to semis. You get a bye. So if you get through all your pool games, go to the power pool, win the power pool, top 2 in the power pool, you go straight to semifinals. Yeah, 1C, 2C from the power pools, and then they readjust to play the pre-semis and get their way in. So it is like the power pools. So it's forgiving. Everyone kind of will have a chance to play back in, but it's also very rewarding. If you win your power pool and you get to take a game out late in the tournament and go straight to a semi, that is huge in the pool of 12, in the division of 12.
Who gets to play the pre-semi? So we have the 2 winners of that pool, right?
So pool C, the losers of pool C, the last 2 will play the winners of pool D in the pre-semi.
Gotcha.
And the pool D is the 3s and 4s from the original pools.
So really,
you got to be top 4 in the pool. If you drop to 5th, which is fair, if you drop to 5th in your pool, you can't win the gold.
Yeah. So through the pool stage, you need to be minimum top 4.
Yes.
And then if you're that 3rd or 4th team, you're going to need to come in the top half. The one.
But then it's like, is 3rd or 4th maybe better than 2nd? Because then you get to play some easier games and potentially get the same.
This is kind of what I'm getting
matchup.
Yeah, it's like.
Or is it iron sharpens iron, and you want those tough games, even if you may lose to the U.S. But do you want to put it all in against the U.S. and lose on universe point, and then take a team that just won, 15-4 and is again, who knows? Exaggeration, hypothetical situation, but a team that kind of pranced their way back in, and they're fresh and ready to go. You're really going to want to look at the schedule on some of these and how you start games. I think coaches are going to have a keen eye on how to play out games.
I think it depends whether you think of the division as the US and a bunch of teams who could beat them, or if you think of it as the US and Colombia and a bunch of teams who are trying to challenge them, right? If you think it's the US and Colombia, and if it emerges that they're definitely going to be the top 2, the bottom route could be quite nice. But if one of those, Germany, Canada, Japan, Australia, can get the bye straight to semis, that would be absolutely huge. And you can only do that from the top power pool.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to the mixed division, Steph.
Yeah, mixed. Let's mix it up. So mixed is 21 teams, Noah.
Awesome.
So 4 pools. 3 of them have 5. 1 of them has 6. And this one, power pools afterwards. With the power pools are even weird. Because the power pools they're 6 deep. So it's the top 3 from each pool go in. You carry over your results. So you play 3 games in power pools. And then that crossover, that bracket goes to semis as well. So win those power pools and you're in. everybody else goes through a pre-semi again.
Pre-semis? Okay.
Yes, pre-semis. Sorry.
Pre-quarters, no?
Yes, my bad. Pre-quarters. And
It's going to be 2 top power pools. The top 2 in each are going to be straight to quarters. And then the bottom 4 in each are going to go to pre-quarters, I think.
yes, you're right. Yeah, and I'm sorry, my brain's melting. I reopened the women's playoff and I saw straight to semis again. And I was like, wait a minute. And I just clicked the wrong one. But you are absolutely right.
It's pretty forgiving for a team to make the pre-quarter, like to make the top power pool. Lose
Yeah, I mean,
everything
top
in
three
pre-quarter.
top three ain't so tough
Yeah, this is
in your opening pool, in your initial pool.
the flip side of a forgiving schedule at the pool stage, right? Is makes you play more knockout stages, right? So the
Yeah,
women's
cutthroat at the knockout side.
women's division, the pools are going to matter more, but there's going to be fewer knockout games here. If you're coming through the back door through the pre-quarters, you're going to play 4 knockout games to win the tournament. So
Okay,
anyway,
let's talk about these Pool A.
pool
USA, Japan, Austria, Switzerland, Argentina. I'll start at the bottom with this one because it's Argentina's first ever representation at a world championship. Super excited about that. I know Agustin Pellegrini. He was playing with KFK last season. He came over to the broadcast at what was EUCR at the time and said how much he loves the Ultimate. He was a fan of ulti.TV and the work that we've done there, and just like he was telling me about this campaign already. We're good. It's going. We're done it. We're doing it. We're accepted. We're getting a team together. There's so much work, but we're so excited to finally have a team. Man, that guy's energy is amazing. There's a nice write-up about it on WFDF.sport. You can have a little read about their opening team. They're going to have their hands full. First time ever at Worlds. They got USA in their pool to kick things off. Maybe not for their first game, but in their pool. They're going to have their hands full, but they're going to be fighting for it. Otherwise, in this pool, Japan, as I've said in both divisions, same applies here. I don't know. Okay, I expect them to be good enough. I don't ever expect a bad Japanese team. Austria mixed, Switzerland mixed. They both were on the lower side of victory in the Freiburg tournament where all the European mixed teams played each other, which there's about 7 or 8 of them. So they have fared the worst. Austria have, even though they're the higher seed. Switzerland did get a win, and I think against one another. Well, I'll have to check on that. But some great names on this team still. You still get Martina Kometsova. There's now, see, I'm already looking. Hartman. Yeah, Sophie Felgic. So that their depth is not going to be there. There's enough players that their names do not jump off the page to me, and even with a good hard read, Joanna Roy, another great player,
and one right,
but
female matching players, right? Because Austria are sending an open team, and
yes,
a lot of the best open male matching players are playing on that open team. So
yep,
I worry about the top end of that Austrian team, but Martina
Switzerland,
really good.
I think, is going to play ahead of Austria. They have been doing it in youth mixed very well. They've won the last 2 youth mixed, not under 17s, but under 20s for Europeans. They did well on the world stage for youth mixed. Vitaliano, a free speed player coming along. Rhea Schemp plays for Hot Mess Express, great young player. La Stufka, a fabulous player. Jacob Simon, the coach. Ooh, if he's like maybe Switzerland don't have a coach. He told me he was the head coach, but he's rostered. Franca Feldman, I coached her in Paris not long ago. Reagan, this is a good team. This is a team. They're young. They're not experienced on a world level, but they've got enough good players. I think they're coming 3.
Yeah, I think that's possible, Steph. You know, at Talampire 2023, this is a deep cut, but the Swiss mixed U24 team beat the Swiss mixed national team, right? So it shows that the talent at the youth level who won the U20s divisions, who did fifth in U24s, pretty good, beat a lot of good teams at U24s, they're there. And I like that there's inexperience in this team, and I like that those new players are coming in and it's not the old guard, and that these young players have had the money to travel all the way to Australia. So I think I'm with you. And there's no other Swiss team at the tournament pulling away talent, right? So it's just Switzerland mix here. So I agree. I think you would probably expect Switzerland to be a spot higher than Austria. But the other thing is, right, these two teams, Austria and Switzerland, are beatable for a team like Argentina. If Argentina show up and they're unbelievably good, or kind of like Romania we just saw at the youth level, have a few players who are really, really good, it's possible that one of these teams that, you know, we might write off as the bottom of the pool could get through to the bracket of the tournament, basically. So I think that if there's going to be a bottom seed pushing through to the bracket stage, I think it could be here with Argentina.
I like it.
At the top, US, right? they're gonna win this pool. Like,
Yeah, with ease. I mean, when you look at this team and some of these players are in the mixed division, it's kind of not fair. Kayla Helton, you know, Harper Garvey. You go top to bottom of this roster. You say these names, and they're just going to tear people apart in this division, particularly. When they get deep, I think there's a couple teams that can give them a good push. But in this division, I don't see a push at all.
If Japan are
in this
at
pool,
Japan level,
in this pool,
I think they're not going to challenge the US, and they're not going to be challenged by the bottom of three of the pool, to be honest. So I think it's, in a way, in terms of building chemistry, like becoming better, it's a rough draw for them. It's also a really nice draw because I think that if they don't beat the bottom three, they have to beat at least two of them and squeak in it's the third seed. So it's a good draw for Japan mix. Given that
let's look at Pool B. This one is interesting. India beat Australia. Was that in London or was that an under 24s mixed?
I
can't remember. But I mean, seeing India at the bottom right away, I think that they can beat China. New Zealand, as you said, won mixed at AOUGC, so don't count them out. Australia at the start of Windmill looked like absolute garbage. But then the next week they went to London Invite and won it. They didn't have quite the competition as they did at Windmill. You know, the best team ever assembled was playing there. But they did get it together and looked much better. For sure, I know who's winning this pool. Do you agree with me?
I think that I was just looking at that India roster. I think that, I don't know for sure. Actually, Australia and Italy is close. Who are you backing? Australia or Italy? Sorry.
Italy.
Italy over Australia.
Yeah. I hope Australia proves me wrong. I love the Barramundis. Australia mixed has been a division that they have done so well in over the years. I was just so underwhelmed with the way they performed at Windmill. And yes, they got it. They made up for the lackluster there. It was a tournament where they were there to get the team bonding and not necessarily like have everything sharp. But I just, it is not, again, this is the superstars of Italy. And this is the people who probably tried out for the Dingoes and Firetails of Australia. It is on home turf. That's going to make a big difference. There's going to be school kids and people chanting Aussie, 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 oi, 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 and waltzing Matildas all over the place. I think they'll step up and play on home turf. I don't think it's going to be a rollover, but again, the Italian roster is stacked. I love it. I like the Italian roster a lot.
I think I buy more of what Australia was selling at London Invite. They did get it together and they beat GB and then they beat them comfortably. And Italy mixed at UC weren't like miles better than GB mixed. They were kind of in that in that conversation we were having with Italy, France, Ireland, Germany, were all around that conversation. We were not really sure who's better, but I think Italy mixed have got better. I'm not sure that GB mixed have.
Italy mix have got much better since if we're going all the way back to EUC. But go on.
Okay, look, well, you feel free to make that argument, right?
Sorrenti, Mastroianni, Rossi, Gasperini, Tramonte, Pancotti. I don't have enough hands. Laffi. Okay, Laffiata was there. Girotto, Scazzieri. Okay, they were there. Bunu, Lagalla, Casarini, Venturoli, Cantu. So there's it's like 2/3 of the roster or more weren't on that EUC team.
So what you're saying is I can't take EUC as good.
No. And EUC, they played out of their mind. They were not supposed to be in that final. It was an under-24 team, essentially. David Barsazzi with 11 stats in the semifinal against Ireland. Yeah. They're gonna be good. They got Cron Hudson as their ass coach as well.
Than Australia, right? But I also think they have a bit more variance than Australia. Like, it's a Davide coach team.
That's a negative for me.
It's not. I don't think it's a negative. I just think it expands the top and it expands your bottom and it expands it quite far.
Mm.
You know, like,
yeah, I don't know if it's a negative. I do like to bash Davide, but he can get a team aligned. Italy and Bologna are very accustomed to responding to the way he coaches, so they're comfortable with his, let's call them, antics. Yeah, they're not. I don't think Davide will drag them down to the cellars, but I think Davide in a close game, if he loses his mind, can shift the energy to the negative space.
Yeah, okay. That's that's not Davide bash too much. I think it's.
I'm trying to look at the Australia roster to see who wasn't in Europe. John McNaughton definitely wasn't. Veteran.
If you're selling this Australia team's hopes, is there a chance that New Zealand creep up and give them a good game? I mean, they won AOUGC. I don't know if you know how similar that roster is from the AOUGC winners.
Yeah, that I don't know. But yeah, I am saying that maybe that is, Australia could come third in that pool.
Mm. I don't think there's many players on this New Zealand side.
No, nor I, but I don't know many Kiwi players. I watch their national championship every year, and that's about it.
But am I wrong here? But was Haberfield on that mixed team at AOUGC? I think
perhaps he was.
I think he was, and I kind of vaguely remember him being on the team and getting loads of stats in the final, being really, really good in the final.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and find out, or people can tell us in the comments.
People can tell us in the comments. I'll edit whether or not he was in the AOUGC team right here, right now.
Okay, so pick him. Who do you got? Put them in order.
All right, look, you've convinced me about Italy. They're one. I'm taking Australia 2 on the basis that I think New Zealand aren't going to be quite as good as AOUGC. I am not convinced by India. I kind of think that given the team was kind of thrown together last minute, right? This team was not confirmed early in the process. I think there's going to be players who can come, but instead of the very best players that India can offer, right? The very best players that India can offer here are good enough to top the pool, right? The best players in India. I just think that given the lateness of all of this coming together, I don't think that's going to happen. So, will I have them above China? Yeah, sure. I have them above China. One day, China are going to be good. One day. But yeah, we'll have China in 5th.
Okay. Yeah, I think about the same. Soumya Gascon playing for India. I coached her as well at some stage. It's amazing to see all these players around. I think I see Italy, Australia, New Zealand, India, China. I'd love to see China show up and make this their strong division and, pop into the 3 spot. Don't see it happening.
They do have
but would be nice.
Division as well.
Huh? Yeah, they got 24, so that could be an indication that they did make it their primary.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could. I don't. They would prefer to be in like Argentina's position, China, I reckon, with playing Australia and Switzerland, than
All right,
than playing like New Zealand, Australia. I don't know.
let's bang into the pool C.
Pool C: Canada, GB, Germany, Korea, and Panama. I want to again talk about the bottom first here. We have Korea and Panama, late joiners. Actually, I think Panama might have been signed out for a while, but definitely a country we're becoming more accustomed to. They made an outing at the World Juniors, and it's a great story of a small nation coming and representing and playing some Ultimate. But the other smaller team, Korea here, you have a bit of a history with, Steph.
Yeah, I mean, I have a small history with both. Even when I was in Nicaragua, there was some Panamanian participation in one of the Nicaraguan tournaments we were at. But in Korea, yeah, I was one of the, I guess, founders of a national team. It was not a national team that went through the association, but it was Korea Ultimate National Team. That's how we went. And at the time before that, it was Seoul Asylum, the name of a band in America, but also the city Seoul in northern South Korea, where they were going to club tournaments around Southeast Asia. When I moved, I was in Busan. We kind of consolidated, started getting the best players from down south. We played beach down in Busan and the players from up north. We found a little cell in Gwangju. We put a team together. We went and played multiple international tournaments in 02, 03. And then from that was the development of KUA, Korean Ultimate Association. And what I do love about this is when I was there, you look at the roster, it would have been all English names and maybe one or two Korean names. Now it's the inverse. You know, you got Thomas Williams out in there, and you got Kurt Metzger, Cameron Brock. Cameron Brock, was that from Indianapolis?
Alley Cats.
Alley
How
Cats.
the hell would he go on that team? He
Uh,
certainly didn't live in Korea.
this is very interesting stuff. But, you know,
Get
the
Matt
rest,
on the
all
phone
Korean
back for a
names
second.
with and Aaron Aden Seikmeyer. So, yeah, who knows what the breakdown is, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. They play a style that was quite similar to what Japan does. They're fast moving, angle changing, low throwing, fast throwing kind of team. That's how they started. It suits their athletic style and statures. So again, I haven't seen much of them since those glory days when they were founded, but I'll have a little bit of a heart for them. Top of the pool, then we got GB, Canada, Germany. I don't know why I read it in that order, but yeah, how do we? That's a tough one. I think I like Canada to stay at the top here. They were okay at US Open, but they didn't make quarters. Or they did make, no, they didn't even make quarters in mixed.
I think this is a pool of like hanging on. I think Canada is going to hang on to first. GB are going to hang on to second. Germany are going to hang on to third in the pool.
Yeah.
I'm not massively enamored by any of these teams. I think given that 3 go through here, this is quite a standard pool. Unless like Cameron Brock is so good, he can just hard carry Korea.
Yeah.
Right? Like Cameron Brock's a really legit UFA player.
Yeah. He's awesome. That's why as soon as I read his name, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, like that really changes the equation of this pool because actually, if I don't know, it depends, right? Because also how much given that Cameron Brock is actually way better than all of the other players, all of the other Korean players on this team who don't play loads of frisbee in the US, is it really worth it for like Cameron Brock to hard carry this Korean national team? Maybe it is because then they get into the top. They could get into the top 3 and play all the hard opponents. Maybe you want to see them.
I always think taking the team as far as it can go is more important than trying to distribute it more evenly through the game. Those players will get a better experience if they can go deeper in a tournament no matter what.
I agree.
By my opinion, no matter what.
fully feel the same way on this until you're in consolation, like, and you're playing your last couple games.
Yeah, but we all get to play together.
Yeah.
Sorry. uh, so yeah, Canada. I think Zell Mott is there. B Ultimate, Rumi Tapad, Alec Arsenault. They're gonna be good. They're gonna be good. Kata, the Furious player. I think they're gonna hold.
Mika Kurahashi, she's great.
Yeah, and then of course we know a lot more about GB.
Hmm.
You know, Sean Colfer at the helm there, the coach, but
I don't think they've got loads better, Steph. I don't think
no.
Like, there's been a lot of personal changes, but for me, it's been quite a like to like. This top of
And what about Germany? They've got I quite like Germany. They've underperformed,
but they didn't make top 4 at EUC.
Yeah,
with Levka on the team, and I don't see
and Nikki then Nikki Prian. They went all in, but not all in, but they
at least
seemed
half
to.
in.
Troutman's not on this team either, so not playing.
Maybe not playing here. Like, there's great players. We got like Avamula.
And Avamula, badass woman. She is.
I thought you were saying she's just bad for a second. I was like,
no,
wow.
she's bad, like in the good sense. Ava is a Brisbaneite as well. She lived in Brisbane for years. I knew Ava as a, I don't know, 16-year-old when she began playing in Australia. So this is kind of a homecoming for her. Huh?
Didn't she play with Lunchbox?
Yeah, she did play with Lunchbox. That's exactly why.
So, like, this Germany team has lost players, but it's kind of replaced players from the youth.
I'm saying Germany's going to go better than GB. Okay. Germany 2.
Sure, I'm going to predict GB to hold position in the 2.
And is Panama going to beat Korea? No, I'm staying with my Koreans. Daehamin Guk.
Wait, we should check this Panama team, though, because I'm slightly worried that there may be a similar theme of Americans on this Panama team. But, like...
De La Cruz, Leon, Fong, Marcano. I don't think so.
No, I think there's no one on here that is, like, I know is going to be a complete game changer. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So, yeah, Korea to stay second. Actually, the more I look at the Canadian team, it's actually a really, really good team.
Yeah.
They've just underperformed. So they should... If they perform up to expectations, they should stomp the pool.
Okay, let's go to the last pool, D.
We got 6 teams here: France, Colombia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Chinese Taipei, and Malaysia. Now, I'm going to start here, Steph. I was talking to 2 Singaporean friends last night, and all of the sort of like news media talk around Singapore has been that they stack mixed. But they told me that actually... Looking at the teams, they're much more even, and there's not been quite the same stacking of mix that there had been at the U24 level, which to me is a real disappointment. So my sort of bold predictions to see them go quarters and beyond, I'm going to have to quell them because, frankly, they know the players and they know the things better. That said, this is a kind of open pool, right? Like
I mean, yeah, like Colombia's done the same. They've definitely gone all in on open and women. All in on open and women. So who's left here? Are they going to be able to beat a balanced Singaporean team? Maybe. I'd still give them the edge based on national pedigree and performance at these kind of tournaments in the past, but I think that the 2-3 here is going to be tough. Hong Kong, same thing. Like, how did they divide? How did they divide their open versus mixed? This is like a heavy Asian pool, right?
Yeah.
4 Asian teams, Colombia, and we haven't talked about France.
Yeah, I think that France is going to find this pool very easy, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they're going to be moving through this pool like Super Team did Windmill.
Yeah, I kind of agree. The Singapore team, we got Reynard Chair here, we got Joven Chong. They were both good players. Chair, very good for youth U24s. Nathan Ong, very good for U24s. So maybe like Deborah Lee's a name I've heard in the Singapore scene as well. Okay, like maybe I'm buying Singapore here. Is there players of note on this Colombia mixed team that is going to stop me from wanting to switch these ones around?
None that jumped out to me.
Bustamante, she's a good player. Can't recognize many players on the male matching side.
Yeah, I
I
can't
think
on
there's
either side.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some female matching players here who are still pretty good.
All right, I think I got my pick.
All right, wait, but first, I think we need to talk a little bit about Malaysia. They made
Oh
it
yeah,
back in
Malaysia.
2018, right, at Perth. And they weren't initially expected to come to this tournament, and kind of like India, they've made a late push to get there. However, it's like a big stacked team. I think they're like certainly over 20 here.
And this is the best of Malaysia.
Do you know that, or
No, but you got it. They weren't. Did you say it was a late push?
yeah? So they weren't like Argentina, right? I think they were committed very early. I don't think Malaysia was in the
Right. Okay.
early and like joined later, kind of like Belgium did, and certainly India did. So I worry about it from that perspective. On the other hand, I know that there's so much Ultimate happening in Malaysia stuff. Like the amount of times I'm scrolling through Ultimate and I see some like random indoor league and it's Malaysia, or there's like a little like whole production place, and I wish I could say the name to do a little shout out, but a little like ulti.TV sort of thing going on in Malaysia. Like the scene is really sick there, so I would love if they can bring great players. And
I've played in Malaysia. I played in KL.
yeah, it's a great scene, right? It's like
Yeah, it's awesome. Super fun. Back in 2003.
the problem for Singapore and Malaysia is very windless. So like very windless country. So if they go to Runaway Bay and Runaway Bay is runaway baying and being windy like we know it can and will be, they're going to struggle. But there are other teams in this pool who may struggle as well. Steph, give me your predictions for Pool D.
Yeah, France is going to win it with ease. I'm going to say Singapore is going to jump Colombia, but Colombia will stay 3. I'm going to say Chinese Taipei takes the 4 spot, and then Hong Kong, Malaysia. I'd like Malaysia to jump the basement, but I don't see it happening. But I think this is going to be a big battle. These teams know each other. They play against each other a lot, the bottom 4 per initial seeding. So I think, I picked Singapore to jump Colombia. I think any one of them could. I can't see like all of them or multiple of them jumping, but it really could. These Asian teams getting going against each other, some friendly, familiar fire could really get them going.
Yeah, and it would be, I think the team that plays Colombia last, right, is going to be when they get a bit like tested in the wind, tested against the other Asian teams, and then they get a shot at Colombia at the end of the pool. I think that could be interesting, but it's hard. It's hard for me to see any of them pushing past
the Frenchies.
I mean, the French are going to win this pool like so easily. France, Singapore, Colombia. I'm going Malaysia in the 4th spot, and then Taipei, and then Hong Kong.
Okay, look at you. You are back in Malaysia.
I love it, man. I got a lot of Malaysian friends who play Ultimate, and they're all really, really good. So,
all right, awesome. Let's get out of this session here. We're gonna come back with some more. We're gonna talk EYUC. We get some more action in the patron only section, including our picks for the pointy end of Worlds. So,
and we'll talk a little bit about EUCF qualifiers as well. So a little bit of EUCF,
yes,
see what happened. A little bit of EUCF, and who's going to make semis and win some medals at World Championships.
Pause. So are we going to do this now, still at the end of this show?
In the Patreon only.
Okay, so now the end of the show is done. So I'll do the closer of the show.
Close this show.
So thanks for joining us on this episode of Best Perspective. Matt Ryan, our guest, a super special guest to have the TD of this upcoming Worlds. A lot of Worlds content. We got more. Patron only section. Make sure you get in there. Make sure you're following along, watching us. Noah Brinkworth, thanks for being with us as always.
Thank you, Steph.
And I'm Steph Rapazzo. We'll catch you next time. Get to those other patron only stuff. Make sure you're subscribed and locked in for everything we do.